What's up, everybody? Ryan Groth here with the Growth Minded Contractors Show, and I'm super pumped to be hanging out with Andy Brown, who's a guest I'm excited for you guys to get to know. If you guys have not subscribed or anything to this show, please do on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube as well. We're uploading all these on YouTube, so you may be watching this on YouTube. But this show is all about helping provide stories from owners or service providers who are going to help you grow your business, and that's what this is all about. So I have an awesome guest, Andy Brown. What's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate the opportunity.
I met Andy, well, indirectly through a customer we were working with, a large Atlanta-based commercial roofing contractor, and Andy was a COO. He was actually promoted to that role and did some amazing work there. But Andy, why don't you share with the group who you are and what you're doing, and we'll hang out there for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for the opportunity. So, Andy Brown, I am the founder and of LULO Coaching, and which is a fractional COO company and also leadership, executive, and business coaching practice. And so, yeah, background is 28 years of leadership. As an adult, I've never not been in a leadership role, so it's kind of an interesting work history, spanning, as Ryan said, recently COO of commercial roofing company that scaled very quickly. Also, multi-site restaurant. I was over 12 restaurants at one time as a division manager, been an operations manager for a lumber company, and then also started in big box retail as a tire and lube express manager for Walmart back in my early 20s. And I did leave the business world for about 8.5 years, was a full-time pastor. So different leadership across multiple industries and spectrums. But yeah, it's been a journey, man, for sure.
I love that. I love that. I love that you are in contracting and have experience there. And our audience are all contractors, and so when you think about like COO and you think about leadership, I really want to hang out there for a minute and just say, when you're talking to people who are a really good fit for fractional COO work, and maybe that's a better solution than finding a COO. But I could see a lot of the people we work with and that are listening are owners who are the main founder. Maybe they have a family member or two that's part of the business, but it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
everybody. And so the COO function is super interesting. And so, like, what challenges do you see somebody dealing with as a founder led, contractor that would lend itself to saying, man, I need a COO, like a fractional COO? Like, what are the problems
Yeah.
and challenges that are typically there that need to be addressed?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my dad was a builder, bivocational pastor, so I grew up on job sites, so I saw a lot of it. Of course, as a kid, I couldn't have said, "Hey, that's a pain point," but I watched it up close. I felt it, and then my brother's still a builder, so I mean, it kind of runs in our blood. But I would say that for me, I look at two types of clients that are ideal candidates for a COO or at least some sort of business coaching that's geared toward this. And that is they're either stuck or they're stretched, meaning that the revenue's been the same for, a period of months or even years. It's just they've hit a ceiling and they're just kind of stuck, and they tried everything they know to do and they're just out of options, and it feels like Groundhog's Day and begins to get monotonous and just kind of routine, or they're stretched. Man, business has been so good, we're growing so fast, our systems and our people and our leadership team can't keep up, and we're starting to give bad service, bad products, that kind of thing. With either of those scenarios, Ryan, you know this, a lot of times leaders are lonely at the top,
Mhm.
especially if you're a single owner. And
Mhm.
you started a lot of contractors started their business in their garage, with their truck and a ladder in the back, and they go out and they're doing a service and they're providing it, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden they start scaling, and man, they're really good at framing or really good at painting or really good at plumbing or roofing or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that they've been trained and equipped to learn how to lead teams.
Mhm.
It's one thing to lead a crew on a job site.
Mhm.
It's another to have an office full of people with different departments, and you're just not used to sort of an organizational management background.
Mhm.
And so it's hard for a business owner because they're having to be a Swiss Army knife, and they may be good or adequate at a lot of things, but they're not focused in what they really even love doing and what really moves the needle for their business.
Mhm.
And so that's where an operations guy can step in and say, "Hey, let's reassess where you're spending your time and get you focused on the highest and best use of your time and talents." As a business owner, you should do the things you love doing. So what do you love doing that really moves the needle for your business? And then let's delegate, release, or eliminate all these other tasks that are sort of pulling at you. So one of the biggest challenges I see is just not knowing what to let go of, what part of the rope to let go of, and invite others into that process with you.
Yeah, that's really good. So a lot of it is just identifying their passions, what they love, what actually moves the needle, and then helping them decide what to delegate, release, or eliminate altogether.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories of situations where there's been an actual elimination, not just even a delegation or an automation, but like where this is done, where it is a complete, poor use of the time that's being spent? What are some examples? And then you don't have to name names of your customers. Like, what are some
Yeah.
examples that have been eliminated, and then what are some that maybe have been automated or delegated that started to see a moving of the needle for the companies you chatted with or worked with, rather?
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak about, the roofing company I was at recently. When I joined, both owners were what I would call employees in their business, which is common. Their day-to-day role is I'm in estimating or I'm in sales or I'm in production. When you're sort of capped out and you've hit your ceiling, you look up and you've got a laundry list of 75 to 125 things that you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And you're like, oh my gosh, it can be overwhelming when you think about all this stuff you're doing. What I've done in the past is go in and help people evaluate that. Where are you spending your time? What can we eliminate? And some of those things can simply be delegated out, like responding to emails. You can pay people overseas these days to go through your email and send you the stuff that really, with a little bit of training and a little bit of direction, you can give somebody a well-paying job in their country, that gives them something to do that's saving you a bunch of time, and they only send you the really, really important stuff. So, think about how many emails a business owner has to respond to daily. If you eliminate a bunch of that clutter, that's time they're able to spend over here on higher impact stuff. What does that add to your bottom line? Not just your sanity, right? And your peace of mind and some capacity in your calendar, some margin in your calendar. But when you're able to focus on higher impact items, that impacts your team, it impacts your product, it impacts your service, it impacts your bottom line. So, some examples would be emails. I would say a lot of lower level tasks, and I don't mean that in a disrespect to anybody, but look, an estimator doesn't do the same things that an owner does. They're both important, vital to the business, but I would venture to guess that an owner should be paying an estimator to do those things while they focus on things that an estimator couldn't do. So we look for those kind of things that are important but can be delegated, and with training and processes be released. It's hard to pinpoint things that you eliminate because every story is so different, right? I mean, just think through your task, Ryan. I mean, if we all as leaders look at things we do every day, there's things that we do out of habit that with a little bit of focus could either be eliminated, automated, or delegated. And that's really where I start with leaders.
Yeah, it's good. I think you have a couple of different types of owner profiles. You have like owners who love to sell, who are good
Yeah.
at selling and good at brand, or good at actually owners in contracting really good at marketing and brand is kind of a rare one. There's not a lot that are really good at that, but some have an eye for it. And then
Yeah.
you have sales, and then you have like some that are really good at teams and vision casting, and then some that maybe don't have any of those skills, but they're really technical and they love being on the
Hmm.
job, and they love the details. So it's not really like for you, you don't recommend a one size fits all. It's like you got to find
No.
what they're passionate about, what they're good at, and then find somebody who's good at the thing that they don't do or they don't want to do, right? Or they're not doing very
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like super basic, but like how many people are caught up in doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like,
Dude, it is not rocket science, but it doesn't come natural. I'm actually mentoring someone to join my team because we've grown pretty quickly, and I want to make sure I'm able to provide services to clients rather than putting them on waiting list. And so I have a young man that is shadowing me, and he sat through a session with me the other day, and he said, "Andy, he goes, what you do is so simple, but it's not easy." And he said, "Why is that?" And I said, "Well, the reason is, look, most of us, we're doers by nature.
mhm.
To really be great at operations, you have to slow down, pause, and do a lot of thinking, because that's where your best strategy comes from. And that's what not entrepreneurs are. It's not natural for them to do that. We got to go. We got to go. They're all about hitting the gas instead of hitting the brake and really analyzing, where am I spending my time? What am I really great at? What gets me out of bed and makes me really passionate about what I'm doing, and what aligns with the purpose of our company? And Ryan, what really moves the needle for my company? If I'm great at something and I like doing it, but it doesn't move the needle for my business, then unless I have put everything else under the responsibility of other people and they continue to do that, then I still have a job to do. I still have to do things that move the needle for my company. I wish every business owner would get to the point where they just get to do what they love and it doesn't affect the business one way or the other. But that's not reality for most. So, yeah, they have to evaluate, man, what am I excited about? As a business owner, you deserve that right. You worked hard, you took risks, do something you love, but make sure it moves the needle and then put people and processes and a system around you to protect your weaknesses. And that's a way that I've always, I had a mentor in Seattle, Washington, who taught me this. And I really believe it's true. We should find people that we submit to their strengths and protect one another's weaknesses. To me, that's a healthy team.
That's cool. And so I got to know the EOS community, and I know you're familiar or certified or do some
Mhm.
work with EOS tools. I mean, you're not a franchisee, but you are, I think there's a certified and then there's a franchise status.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I got certified as a masterclass integrator in January of this year. Yeah, and
okay.
we ran that at the roofing company I was at. Very familiar with it. Yes.
Okay. So, and we've done some stuff and run off of EOS a bit. And a lot of my friends and colleagues in the industry have as well. So they've had a lot of
Mhm.
success. It's become pretty popular. But I wonder this, it's like visionary integrator thing. I think
Mhm.
sometimes I wonder, do some people just like jump to becoming a visionary too soon? And they just like get a little too infatuated and romanced by this idea that I'm just going to like be able to be a visionary, and they stop having their hands on execution, and then they delegate integration to somebody to execute and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm just like being honest. Like I think I've done that where
Yeah.
I like, oh, I'm gonna have to have her hire my integrator. And then I go
Yeah.
out and do like I've not had success getting things done to the vision that I wanted. And I'm like, dude, I'm actually pretty decent. When I get my hands on stuff, I get it done.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good visionary and integrator, but I feel like there's a bit of a fallacy that's occurred where because of EOS has become so strong, people are maybe misfiring or prematurely building that role and that function and their accountability chart maybe before they should, and,
Yeah.
I just think it's, something to be thinking about because I love the tools, and I think that there's so many things that it has to offer, but if that founder person who has vision is trying to act like they're a $20 million company and they're only like
Yeah.
3, I think that
Yeah.
they're gonna have problems.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I mean, there's no one size fits all, right? And that's where I think that, if a company is considering using EOS or any other operating system, the main point is figure out an operating system that's going to help you be healthy and sustainable. Because Ryan, you can try to grow too fast, no question about it. The point of working with a EOS integrator, which is someone who is a franchisee and they're trained in those tools, part of that process is they're assessing you. And a good integrator is going to look at a visionary and say, hey, let's evaluate your skill set, your passions, what you're good at, what moves the needle for you. And then if they don't have those visionary skills, they're going to coach them on that and say, hey, let's slow roll that. And which is what I would do. And I work with companies, implementing different systems, operating systems, things that I work with companies that run off EOS. And you're right. Sometimes people, it could be premature. So then maybe that person's not in the integrator spot or in the visionary spot, but they're a great integrator. There's nothing that says that they can't have a visionary who's a fractional visionary or somebody else who sort of plays that role. I've seen situations where you have a visionary who plays visionary and integrator. I know of those situations. I know of situations where you have people that are co-visionaries and they sort of again submit to one another's strengths, protect one another's weaknesses. There's no one size fits all. A lot of wisdom in what you said. I would not rush the process, but I also wouldn't go at it alone. The reality is anybody can go out and buy the tools, buy the books from EOS and try to self-implement. I caution against that because most people don't have great self-awareness. I think we would agree with that. Most people either overestimate themselves or underestimate themselves and those around them. So the beauty of working with a coach or an implementer or someone like me who isn't necessarily a certified implementer, but can help you make EOS run very smoothly in your business from an operations standpoint, they're going to speak into that and say, look, it's probably not the right idea for you to be the visionary. You can speak into the vision, of course, but you're not the big picture guy that works on those types of things. So yeah, good wisdom what you said there.
When someone hears the word operations, what does that mean in your world? Define operations, because I think that could even be a bit vague to some.
Yeah.
And I think there's different interpretations. What do you define as operations in a business, contracting business?
It's a great question. It's like you've been asking questions for a while, man. For me, it's the engine that makes everything go. Imagine if all you focus on is revenue and you're trying to drive sales, drive sales, drive sales, but your operations, your infrastructure, your people, your operating system, your processes, your training, your SOPs, it's how you get things done. If you are a great sales company and you don't have the infrastructure to execute at a high level, what's going to happen to your sales in the future? They're gone.
So,
They
so when you
disappear.
say infrastructure, are you saying like the crews or the management or like technology or like what? When you describe like help somebody who's pretty uneducated on operational
Yeah.
infrastructure, define that. Define operational.
All of it. It's everything that it takes. If you go sell something, operations is everything that takes place to get what you sold to market to the client, completed,
Mhm.
wrapped up, and billed. That's the operation. So that includes your accounting. That includes your back end stuff, your accounting, your HR, your policies, working with an accountant, a CPA, all of your, that's all part of operations. And of course, production is how we get the job done. Right. So service, if you're a commercial roofing company, you have a production team that installs the new roofs. You have a service department who makes all the leak repairs. That is all part of your operations. How does all that mesh together to execute to the client what the sales team has went out and sold?
Got it. So if you're a contractor, how would you go about looking at their operations team? Let's just say they have a sales team that's dedicated and they
Yeah.
have people who are non-selling personnel to execute. If you were to like, okay, cool. What's your brain assessing and analyzing how would you go about analyzing and assessing? And then what would you recommend? What would you talk to people about? What would you speak to the owner? Like, what's that process? Do you need to go to their office? Do you need to meet the staff, the personnel? Do you need to how do you go about assessing an operation and saying, "Okay, I see some holes, I see some gaps." What's that process?
Yeah. Yeah. So typically for me, it starts with an introduction call, where I've got some assessments that I've developed that, the owner or the primary, leader of the business is answering some questions that, I'm not diagnosing anything. I'm gathering information through these self assessments and questionnaires that I've developed where they're describing their pain points. And through that, it's just like going to a doctor. You go to a doctor, you describe what's going wrong, and then he examines you and then he gives you, here's what you need to do. It's much the same thing I do. And so, because again, it's not a one size fits all. A
Right.
company may be strong operationally over here, but in this part of their operations, it's pretty bad. So we may not have to do anything with this, but over here, we really got put a lot of focus. So it starts with just an introductory, discovery call. And then through that, I'm listening for pain points. And then based on that, I then go to the next step. But a common occurrence is this. A lot of times the leadership team is very aware. They're very aware of where they're strong, where they're weak, where they're struggling, but their team may not be as aware. They may think they're doing good because what I've found in most businesses, Ryan, is there's a lack of clarity of what the expectation is and how we want people to go about that. So, a lot of times business owners get extremely frustrated. Well, this came natural to me. Why can't they just do it? That's a common thing that's said in construction. Look, you're where you're at because you're gifted. You're special. My brother's a builder and I grew up on construction sites. If I tried to build somebody's house right now, God help us. If you could give me the plans, the blueprint, and I understand the basics of it. Absolutely. I understand how a house goes together. But if you put me in charge of building your house right now, it does not come natural to me. It's not going to go well. Okay. But it comes very natural to him. Now, vice versa. If you ask my brother to describe operations and how to run a company at a high level, he's not going to get it. And that's common in businesses. So, I look at, if I'm looking down in the organization, let's say it's a production team for a commercial roofing company, I'm asking that project manager if that's the piece of the puzzle that's been struggling. We've been struggling to come in under time and under budget on projects. Then I'm meeting with that project management team, either in person or virtual, doesn't matter. And I'm interviewing them. And I'm saying, all right, walk me through your production process from start to finish. When a job comes, spell it out for me. What's your proven process to make sure it's going to go smooth, it's going to be safe, quality is going to be at a high level? Walk me through the process. And most of the time,
They don't have one.
and this is scary,
They don't have one.
that if they do, it's what they've put together on their own. It's the best idea that they came up with, and it's by trial and error, which is admirable, but that's not going to help you scale at a high level because you have to have clarity and consistency in a systematic way throughout the organization. So, long way of saying this, that you do that with every piece of the business, though, and accounting, HR, sales, service, production. You listen for the pain points that are all different in all different businesses, and then you ask for that process. Show me your process and your SOPs and your training. How are you training people to come into your organization and then execute what you want? Because if you're the leader that just these things came natural to you and you're just expecting people to replicate you, that doesn't happen. You have to be intentional about training, development, and painting a clear picture of what you want.
Yeah. So let's pretend you not only have a process that's been shared in an interview, but then you've worked with the owner and you've taken that project manager, that production manager, and you've defined a process.
Mhm.
So tell me now, is a defined process therefore in some PDF, slide deck? How does it become actually repeatable and visible? Like I think that's the other issue is there isn't one, and then you got one that needs to be defined, and then it's defined. Now
Yeah.
it's actually executable. What would you recommend to a contractor to take those two steps to define it and then actually make it something you can see and
Yeah.
reinforce? I'm imagining technology uh, needs to be in place. But speak to me about that and how you would recommend defining and actually ensuring that they have a scalable process.
Yeah, a lot of different ways you can go for sure. At a minimum, you have to have a documented process, and that's going to be a very, what I recommend is a documented process is really kind of a one-page overview, and then you have SOP, standard operating procedures that go down to the granular level. And so these are the things that are really spelling it out to where somebody could grab that, read it, and follow along. And a good SOP answers all questions. It's not that questions aren't allowed, but a good SOP is it sort of thinks of questions in advance and answers them in the document. You want to try to eliminate the need for further training because it's so simple. But no one's going to carry out a book this thick of SOPs into the field. So you use those as sort of references and training points. What I recommend if it's construction is they keep that in a binder in their truck as a reference point, but then you have a one pager that really summarizes what the process is. And I'll give you an example, and then we'll talk about technology. But an example is when I pastored the church in Seattle, Washington, we wanted to develop a process that really talked about, reaching people in the community and then what was the end goal. And so it was just four words: serve, grow, give, go. Everybody in our church, and even people that didn't attend our church who served with us in the community, knew that we were all about that process. Before you ever come to our church, we want to get you serving with us. And through that, now you're going to grow in a relationship with a community of people that, whether you believe the same as us or not, you admire what we're doing. We're cleaning up schools. We're cleaning up, we're taking food down to the homeless, those kind of things. And then you grow in a relationship with the community. And then all of a sudden, now you're growing a relationship with God, and that leads to giving of your time, talents, and resources. And then you go out on mission with us. So that four-step process, I've done that my entire career. I did the same thing at the commercial roofing company. They had a process in place, but it was kind of, people didn't really understand it, buy into it. So we made it into four steps. So every project was simply, a handoff from the sales and estimating team that came to the production team. And now we're going to do a pre-con. Then we did the install, and then you did a closeout. So that four-step process, you could write it on a one page, and project managers knew exactly what the process was. And then taking it a step further, we had a lot of success at one company with Monday.com. We were able to go in and build the process in those four stages, and you literally had all the subpoints of what the process was, and you could put the person's name who was accountable for it, the date it was due. You could put additional files in there. So there's all kind of software programs out there where you can do this with technology. But
Mhm.
the basics of this, you got to start with a one pager that summarizes the process, the core process, the SOP that's the more granular level, written out, very thorough, answer questions in advance. And then, yes, obviously use technology to sort of track that. Those three things in conjunction have worked very well.
Love that. That's great. Thanks for sharing that detail. That's super helpful. All right, sweet. So, how can the market get in touch with you if they're like, man, this sounds like somebody who can help me develop this, identify this, implement this. This is what he does fractionally. I mean, how do they get in touch with you, Andy?
Yeah, easiest way is just email Andy at lulocoach.com. So that's LULO coach.com. So Andy at lulocoach.com.
And you're also on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. On LinkedIn, I pull up my profile for you real quick. It's just Andy Brown at LULO Coach. I think it's Andy Brown 220 is the actual LinkedIn profile there. But yeah, pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
And if you were to describe your ideal candidate of somebody you could partner with in terms of like maybe employee size, revenue size, kind of what's the right, because I know you trade your, let me say it differently. They're paying for your time, right? So
Yeah.
you kind of know how busy you are and things like that. What would you say is that size of company, number of employees or revenue roundabout that's a good fit baseline for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I would say is I tend to specialize who I tend to market to and is, service-based contractors in that $5 to $30 million range. And, number of employees, I'd say 10 plus. That's when you really need to start gelling a team together.
Hmm.
Oddly enough, though, right now I'm working with a chiropractor. I'm engaging with a law firm of 10 people that was referred to me. So the reality is what I do works across all different industries. It's really just about organizational health, Ryan. But I certainly have a passion to help contractors because, again, I know having been the son of one, the brother of one now, and recently, ran one at a high level, I know those pain points intimately and I know how to help in those things. And so, we're in a place right now where even though I've just launched my business in the last few months, we're getting ready to have to go on a waiting list. We're fractional clients. That's why I'm trying to onboard coaches and train them to do what I do. But right now, an ideal client for me is someone who's wanting to prime for that in 2026, the second half of 2026, that wants to enter into a more of a business coaching relationship where think consulting on steroids. It's not just giving advice, but I'm coming alongside of you and I'm holding you accountable. I mean, that's one thing that anybody who wants to work with me needs to understand that. I'm not just going to give you advice and run. I'm going to ask you, did you do it and why you didn't do it? And because I'm trying to help you get better. And so I'm invested in this with you. So that's an ideal client for me right now, is someone who's really looking to the future. I'm not ready for a fractional client right now, but let's start with a business coaching relationship and be ready for that in sometime in 2026.
Sweet. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great. And if you guys don't know this, STG is a sales training and coaching company. So we work with owners, sales reps, sales leaders in the trades to help train and coach them for high performance. And so we do a ton of this on the sales side. So it's pretty cool to hear you discuss this on the operational side, man. It's great. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Andy, thanks for jumping on. It was great.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, if you guys like, share, subscribe, comment, tell me what you think. Appreciate you.